little angels, it's Miss Missy here again. Today we are going to read a story about Jesus, and then we are going to make a yummy treat that will help us remember that Jesus is risen. So we need to use the oven for our treat. So while it's warming up, we're going to read a story about Jesus and Good Friday. People didn't understand. Jesus was God's perfect son, sent to earth to save them from their sins. The leaders brought him to the Roman governor, who put Jesus on trial. Many people were against him. "Crucify him," the crowd shouted. "Kill him! Nail his hands and feet to a big wooden cross." Jesus didn't deserve this. He had spent his time on earth loving and caring about people, helping them to know about his Father in heaven, and telling them the right way to live so they could one day join him there. Dying on a cross like a criminal was a sad but very important part of God's big plan, and Jesus would do it. He wasn't a criminal, but he would die like one. The soldiers built a heavy wooden cross and nailed a sign to it that said, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Then they marched Jesus through the streets. They made him go up a hill to the place called the Skull, and then they nailed Jesus to the cross. They also crucified two criminals with him, one on his right and one on his left. It was so painful, but Jesus still prayed, "Father, forgive these people. They don't understand." "Why don't you save yourself?" someone laughed. And of course, Jesus could save himself if he wanted to. A crew of angels would have rushed down from heaven to rescue him if he had asked. But instead, Jesus chose to stay there on the cross and die to save all those who believe in him. No one could ever love as much as Jesus. Then it happened. God poured all of his people's sins in the past, now, and forever into Jesus' heart. "Father," Jesus cried, "don't leave me." But God had to turn away from all the sin, and Jesus felt all of the dirt of sin and all the anger of his Father that came with it. But it wasn't his sin, it was ours. Jesus felt it and suffered for it so that we wouldn't have to. Right then, at that very minute, the world changed forever. Now God's people had hope. By asking God's forgiveness for their sins and believing in what Jesus had done for them, their hearts could be made clean, and they could live in God's perfect heaven forever. At noon, an eerie, dark cloud filled the sky and hid the sun. Powerful lightning and thunder jerked across the sky. God's mighty anger at sin came down. The earth shook furiously. Huge rocks shattered and split. The sky swirled with dark, scary colors. "Father, I give you my life," Jesus said. Then he looked up toward heaven and cried out, "It is finished." And he died. And it was finished. Jesus had done it. He had taken on himself God the Father's anger and the punishment that was meant for his children to save us from our sin. So that's the end of that story. Now, Jesus died, but don't worry, because we know the rest of the story, right? But before we get to that part, we're going to make our yummy treat. And they are called resurrection rolls. And there's going to be something special, something amazing that happens with them when they're all done. So, we have our recipe here, and everyone already washed their hands, so you don't have to worry about that. Everyone's going to get a marshmallow, and the marshmallow represents Jesus because he was white and pure because he was without sin. So then we are going to roll our marshmallows into melted butter. The melted butter symbolizes the embalming oils that they used on bodies. So we're going to roll it around like this. Okay, so go ahead, roll your marshmallow in the butter, the melted butter.
I got mine sleeves up.
Okay, good girl. And then after that, we're going to roll it around in cinnamon and sugar. And that represents the spices they used to prepare a body for burial, just like they did for Jesus. So after you put it in the butter, then the cinnamon and sugar.
I can't wait.
That's okay, you'll have time. Okay, let's pull it over here. Okay, there you go. And then after you do that, you're going to put it on our crescent roll. And the crescent roll represents the cloth that they used to wrap around Jesus. So we're going to wrap it around our marshmallow Jesus, and you're going to pinch it shut like that. Yep, go ahead and wrap it.
How do I wrap it?
So just fold it across,
Can I do
and
one?
I'll make another one.
Can I do one?
I'm gonna do boil it in a bowl.
Okay, just leave it there.
Mom,
Yep.
can I do one?
I need a towel.
Okay, no wait, just wrap it up, and then I'll give you a towel to wipe your hands.
Can I do one?
Okay, just wait. Okay, put it back down. Good girl. Wrap it up.
Good.
Wrap it up. Okay.
Now can
All right,
we
hold
do-
on. And let me do. All right, here, Colin. Do the last
Yay.
one for us.
Did it.
Okay. All right.
See, Mommy, I did it.
Okay. Everyone, wipe their hands. Take turns wiping your hands.
Disgusting. Give me on it.
That's not
Do it too.
Okay.
Stinky hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you need to dry your hands a little bit.
I want to do it.
Okay.
Can I do
Oh
it
no,
now?
we're all done. Those were just extras, so we're gonna put these aside. Because we're gonna put them in the oven.
So we're gonna eat
Thank you,
them
Colin.
when it's done, right?
Okay, so we're gonna put these in the oven.
Ew. What are we making? A little yummy,
Okay,
but
so now
where we
the rolls are in the oven.
What are we making?
Okay, we're making the resurrection rolls like I told you. Okay, so the rolls are in the oven, and while they're baking, we're gonna read another story about Jesus and Easter Sunday. God's big plan wasn't done yet. Okay, just wait. Some people still doubted that Jesus was God's son. Even his friends weren't sure. You see, Jesus had told people that 3 days after he died, he would live again. Jesus' friends had laid his body in a tomb. The Roman soldiers came and sealed the tomb shut with a huge stone. Okay, you can get down. They guarded the tomb night and day. Those who hated Jesus figured he was dead, and this was the end. Those who loved Jesus were almost afraid to hope. Early Sunday morning, women who were friends of Jesus arrived at the tomb. Suddenly, the earth rumbled and shook. A blinding bright light tumbled down from heaven, and an angel appeared wearing a glowing white robe. He rolled the stone away from the tomb and sat on it. The sight of the angel and the empty tomb scared the guards so much that they fainted. "Are you looking for Jesus?" the angel asked the women. "He's not here. God brought him to life just as Jesus said he would. Hurry, tell his disciples that Jesus has risen from the dead." The women ran and told the disciples, but the disciples said nonsense. They sat around looking sad, refusing to believe that Jesus was alive. Later that day, 2 of them were walking to a village called Emmaus when a stranger came and walked along with them. "What are you discussing?" he asked. "What everyone is talking about," one of the disciples answered. "Have you not been here the past 3 days?" Then they told the whole story of what had happened to Jesus. After the stranger had heard this, he said, "Why are you so slow to believe?" He reminded them of everything the prophets had written about Jesus, and especially the part where Jesus would come back to life. When they got to Emmaus, the disciples invited the man to have supper with them. He sat at their table, took some bread, blessed it, and broke it. Then he passed it to them. That's when they realized they knew him. "Lord Jesus," they cried out, "it's you." Then suddenly Jesus disappeared. They found the other disciples and told them what had happened. He's alive, they agreed. Our Lord Jesus lives. So isn't that so exciting that Jesus is alive? And if you believe in him and ask him into your heart, he will live with you forever and you have a future home in heaven. So now we're going to let our rolls finish baking and then we'll be back to show you what amazing thing is going to happen to them. Okay, we're back. Our resurrection rolls are all done, and we're going to show you what amazing thing happens with these rolls. So we're going to open them up.
Don't eat.
This is the tomb. We put Jesus in the tomb, and we're going to open them up. Open up your rolls. Can you open them?
Can't open mine.
I'll help you.
Can you open it? Let's see. Let's open them up. And what do you see inside?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's right, because Jesus isn't there. Jesus rose. He's alive.
He went out there. That's this marshmallow.
Yeah. So this is a great way to help you remember that Jesus, even though he died, he did not stay dead. He is alive and he is with you today. So if you want to make these at home, just make sure you ask your mom or dad for help first, and I'll make sure that they have the recipe to do it with you at home. So, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had as much fun as we did, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!